better.
Hey everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 306 for February 6, 2019. My name is Russell Frost. I have the good fortune to be your host, and look at this panel. Look at this. Look at the really bright ghost-like guy. That is Tony Schaefer. Tony Schaefer is doing this broadcast tonight from Mark Coughlin's hotel room, and I'm just going to let him explain the rest of that.
All right, here is Mark Coughlan.
Hey, Mark.
That's not fair.
There we go. There's Mark.
Mark's watching.
So Mark is in the chat room. So Mark just recorded the Tesla Life and decided that he was going to give me what drives us, because we are in a hotel, to be undisclosed, in Chicago with shitty lighting. Yes,
Yeah.
It is not set up with studio quality lighting. That is for sure.
It was better when you were standing.
Yeah, I think it was. But we are going to be going to the media days of the Chicago Auto Show tomorrow.
Yay.
Looking forward to it.
Well, let's introduce everybody else and get this show on the road, as they say. The man next to the highly reflective ghost-like individual that is Tony Schaefer is our newest panelist. And this, I promise, Casey, will be the last time I introduce you that way. Mr. Casey Green.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
There we go. And next
His
to
lighting is
him.
good.
I'm sorry?
His lighting is good now.
Oh, that's better, Tony.
All right.
It's a little kind
There
of
we go.
weird, but that's cool.
Right.
Yeah, that's better. You're
Yeah.
not as, you're more corporeal now.
Oh,
less
and
ghost-like.
I'm still presenting, so everyone's watching me adjust my.
Oh, I'm sorry. There. Whoops. No. We don't want to do that. I want to do that. There we go. Somehow you're muted though, Tony.
I
Just
got it.
for the record. Thank you. Next to Mr. Green, our friend, Dr. Evan Fusco.
Oh, whoa. I'm usually last, Doctor. You're totally throwing me off here, man.
I know.
All right.
You got to keep up.
Good. I'm doing good. Where we are anticipating down here in Southwest Missouri, like 8 different weather events tonight. It's pretty crazy forecast. So if I suddenly shut off and leave, I've had to go man a FEMA shelter, but hopefully that won't happen. I am consuming a Schlafly's oatmeal stout this evening.
I have had that. That is delicious.
It is delicious. It could use a little more body, but the flavor is awesome.
Is it made from Phyllis Schlafly or is it something else?
Whatever it is, it tastes good.
Ooh, good comeback. Good comeback. Because, that was a really creepy thing for me to say. Speaking of not creepy, our friend in Boulder, Colorado, the founder of Boulder Hybrids, Mr. Paul Guzik.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be back. And my beverage sponsor tonight is Juicy Soda from Izzy. And you're supposed to say, why aren't you having a beer, Paul?
Why aren't you having a beer, Paul?
Because we have a customer car in the shop that I have to move tonight that has one of those breathalyzer, immobilizer things.
Oh, really?
Every time you have to blow into the car to get it to start.
Wow.
Even the mechanic.
Even the mechanic. Some of them have a keypad that you can call the manufacturer and they'll give you an override code, like a mechanic's code to bypass, but this one doesn't. You have to blow in it no matter what. So
Wow.
So avoid breath mints, mouthwash.
yeah, and beer.
And beer, yeah.
So clearly
vodka.
you're the only one in the shop then, right?
Yes, I'm the only one left this evening.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, none of my techs want to blow into the plastic mouthpiece, even though the customer supplied fresh mouth. They go, "That's gross," and I'm like, "It's a fresh mouthpiece." But anyway. So, more of the story: don't get a breathalyzer installed in your car. Don't get a DUI because then your mechanic gets frustrated.
See,
Yeah.
there you
And
go.
no one likes
That's
over
an extra 15
mechanic.
minutes labor hours.
This is extra labor.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, and then if you're trying to run the car to test something every like 5 to 10 minutes, you have to blow again.
What?
And yeah, because when you're driving, like the whole idea is you can't have your buddy blow into it as you're leaving the bar, and then halfway home, you're buzzed, and it says blow again to make sure you're still the guy driving. So
nice.
Wow.
Nice.
and if you go through the trouble to bring a buddy who's sober to blow, you might as well let him drive, right?
Yeah, right. Like, hello. That's
so they've thought it through. I mean, it's
yeah.
Anyway.
Because people who think things through don't usually get DUIs.
Right. Well, the manufacturer of these gadgets, which the state makes them put in,
of course,
busted.
Nicely done. Well, we have a lot of news. I'm going to just jump right into it, and we're going to go to our slightly less reflective friend, Mr. Tony Shaker, for the first story.
So,
wait, I'm sorry. I lied. I wanted to, but Mark's not available, is he?
He says no.
Okay, he's unavailable. So we're going to start with you. I was going to start with Mark with something to sort of counterpoint your story, but you go.
I don't even know what I'm doing anymore.
I know. I'm sorry. It's my fault.
Yeah. Okay. So it was minus 24 Fahrenheit in Chicago, which is really cold in centigrade. And the wind chill, of course, was even colder, and then it got up into above freezing. There was a 65-degree swing, and then it ice stormed last night, and they're calling for ice storm tonight. And where am I going with this? The fact that CBC.ca did an article about how the cold weather affects electric vehicles. And, we know, of course, that batteries don't perform as well when they're cold, but also people are turning on their heat. They're pre-warming the cabin. And in some cases, the people are saying here a 40% draw and a 40% loss of range for some electric vehicles. Now, those of us who expect these things, well, we expect these things. Not everyone does as much research with electric vehicles before they actually buy an electric vehicle. So a lot of people are being caught by surprise when they go to get in their car. It's fully charged, and instead of, I was going to say 250 miles or whatever range they're expecting, now they get in and it only says like 175 or something, and people are really shocked and really surprised. But I just wanted to make sure that we talk about on the show the fact that cold weather affects all vehicles, and it is a lot more pronounced in electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles and vehicles that use batteries in general.
Especially if you like heat.
Yes. If you like your toes and your fingers, you turn your heater on, and that consumes more electricity. That
is one good thing about ICE vehicles is heat is a waste product. So in the winter, you don't feel guilty warming the cabin.
Right. Which is why if you want to save your battery, you could install a generator car to generate heat to heat the cabin.
Well, now, didn't the RAV4 have a EV? Didn't it have a little heater?
The original one?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It was electric powered.
Well, I thought it had
I was going to say, wasn't it ceramic? Electric ceramic?
Right, but it was still no petroleum-based fuel to get heat.
Right. There was.
No.
Yeah, Kiwi EV installed a diesel heater in his.
Did he really?
Yeah, it was a little Peugeot iMEV.
Yeah.
Someone say iMEV. I'm sorry.
Yes,
it was
the Peugeot branded iMEV.
The Jet Electrovan from the 80s had it was gas or diesel based auxiliary heater, even though it was an electric vehicle.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Oh, a diesel heater?
Yeah, so he installed this diesel heater, and over 2 or 3 winters, he got it tuned in just right. And like he just recently traded it for a Leaf in Europe or Kiwi.
I can't. Well, I'm sure. What does a diesel heater smell like? It's got to be awful.
It's got
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't blow the exhaust into the cabin.
Sure, it doesn't, right?
Well, he
That's what
installed
you
the
say.
exhaust, and then like when he had to go in for his emissions testing, he would take the heater out so they didn't try to hook up to it.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, it's kind of a. I don't want to say it's a non-starter, but it's a almost like a community service announcement. If this is the first time, if this is your first experience with an electric vehicle or vehicle with a battery, you can expect that the winter is going to be rough on your range.
It's not as bad as they said it was, though. I mean, in my Prius, my Civic Hybrid, my other Civic Hybrid, my 2 volts, both Prius. Both Teslas. I mean, you see the drop, but it's not 40%. It's like maybe 20, 25 if you do a cold start and you don't do a block heater on the hybrids, and if you don't do a preheat while plugged in on the electrics.
I think it depends on the type of driving you're doing. I would say that in the coldest of weather, I've seen 40% for like frequent short trips over the course of a day. Right. So if you look at my starting range, and then I go and I go one place for an hour and the car gets cold, and I get back in and I drive someplace else for another hour and the car gets cold, and I get back in and drive someplace else. And then I finally get home at the end of the day and I look at it. It probably is 40% worse than I would have gotten on a nice 72-degree day where I didn't use the air conditioner. But you're right. I think if you're on a road trip, you're not going to see a 40% type hit unless you've got just massive headwinds and super freezing cold. And
right.
Yeah.
Well, to that point, I did take my first Volt to the Detroit Auto Show, and it was a bunch of that short style trips. And like you said, yes, it did hit pretty hard. It took half the battery away from the short trips and running the heater and all that maintenance crap that the Volt likes to do. But your gas vehicles, your non-hybrids, they will still lose, not quite that bad, but they will lose a quarter right off the top if it's cold enough.
Sure. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is people are not very good at, checking their tire pressures and things like that. And if, you've got crazy weather like we've got in Missouri, and it's 65 degrees one day and it's, 10 degrees the next. Right. I mean, that tire pressure drops significantly, and that impacts you, plus whatever crap is on the road, if it's wet or snow or ice or whatever's on there. All those factors give you a hit. And now those same factors will hit the ice, but it might not be as noticeable because most people don't track their fuel economy in an internal combustion vehicle. And second, they are getting the advantage of the waste heat for the cabin heating, whereas it's absolutely coming straight out of the battery on the EV.
And ICE cars all get crappy mileage on cold days, especially if it's a short trip. If your commute is 10 miles away and it read out the MPGs, you'd be embarrassed at what your car gets. Even a Prius will get really crappy mileage on a cold day and a short trip because the engine hasn't even reached operating temperature. And until then, it's dumping massive amounts of fuel in to get to operating temperature, and it's running very inefficiently.
And that thermos bottle on the Gen 2 didn't help too much.
A little bit, but
yeah, right.
It's a tough, I mean, a very small, which is why they dropped it in Gen 3, right?
Yeah.
Well, they went with a different. They have a heat exchanger off the exhaust for Gen 3, but
see. So Mark on the Tesla Life show tonight, a little earlier, told the story about how much he loves his Model 3 and how well it performed today, driving down from Canada to Chicago through an ice storm, covered in ice. He did say that the Model 3 heater struggles a little bit, and sometimes there's ice buildup on the front of the car because guess what? There's no big hot engine in the front. There's LED lights that don't throw off as much heat as halogens would. It's tougher, but overall, he had a really positive experience today. Again, on a long road trip under arduous conditions at best. So there you go.
The heated seats turned up to 11, I presume.
I didn't ask him about that, but he did say that some of the stuff is like running at full tilt just to kind of even things out. And again, this isn't exclusive to electric cars by any means. You buy the right, economical sedan and the heater maybe works. Maybe it takes 10 minutes to warm up. You're already at work by then and you've frozen your butt off and, but nonetheless, there it is. That's all I got.
Right, and then there's the satisfaction with this particular the Tesla and other vehicles that you can preheat it. Man, gosh, that's great. I walk out, 30 seconds or less in the cold, and I get in a nice toasty car, and I drive home, and I'll take that little range hit.
And your garage isn't full of noxious exhaust fumes.
Exactly.
There's that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're not potentially committing suicide by walking in your garage.
Yeah.
Murder.
So, speaking of noxious,
Oh, finally, a decent segue.
thank you. Evan has a story about a few noxious people pulling some bullshit.
Yeah, so our little venture into the political world, which we never do here.
No.
Electric just this afternoon is a story about a new federal bill that's being sponsored by 3 Republican senators, 2 from Wyoming, 1 from.
Or he said big oil sponsoring it.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah. So particularly Senator John Barrasso from Wyoming, who is very heavily sponsored by the oil and gas industry, and they have introduced a bill to completely kill the federal electric vehicle tax credit. And not only that's not good enough. They are going to add an annual fuel surcharge type tax to offset the lack of revenue from selling gas on every alternative fuel vehicle. If I was reading through the text of the actual bill, and it's all really super vague stuff that they estimate what average gallons of fuel consumption you would be using for your vehicle, and then there's going to be a formula that changes but isn't specified in the initial bill how much you're going to have to pay, and that would be supposedly equivalent to what you would pay if you were driving a gas vehicle, and they're going to figure out if it's normally going to be a diesel vehicle or a gasoline vehicle, and it's just a mess, just a huge money grab thing. And so
is that on top of my state surcharge for driving an EV?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Because
if it's from Wyoming, they're going to assume that your gas vehicle is like an F-350 or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. And on top of the solar panel surcharge too.
Yeah. And then the real stick in the eye is the title of the bill, of course, which is the Fairness for Every Driver Act.
Of course.
Yeah, let's remove
because the government doesn't subsidize any oil companies.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no one more victimized in America than the driver of the gasoline-powered automobile.
Well, now assuming that it's an old white male. An old white male in an internal combustion engine vehicle is the #1 victim in the United States right now.
That's right.
He bought the car 50 years ago.
At best. Well, yeah. Wow.
Let's end the oil subsidies. See how they do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that simultaneously, and then I think we can all be happy, right? And charge everybody the same, calculate the same formula for your highway taxes and stuff that you would for every single vehicle, no matter the fuel.
Because that would be fairness for all drivers.
That would be.
Yeah. And I think we
charge the true price of gasoline at the pump, and it'd be like $4.50 a gallon everywhere.
Yeah, it'd be European prices. Yeah. We calculated what the average, I think we did a 35 mile per gallon vehicle, 12,000 miles, and maybe it was $2.50 a gallon. And we came up with a number that was, I want to say it was around $75 or $80 or $85 a year in gas tax. And I bring this up because every time they talk about electric vehicles should pay a surcharge, should pay something every year to offset lost revenue from gas tax. First of all, you're looking at 1 to 1.5% of the vehicles. And secondly, anything more than $85 is a ripoff. And yet they act like we're bankrupting the United States from the 3% of consumers who are buying electric vehicles and not paying their $80 a year.
Those bastards.
Yeah.
How un-American. This is strict. Go ahead, Casey.
Making sure it's not one of the ones we're discussing. I heard today that that the EVs have finally outsold the hybrids for the first time.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. We probably have Tesla to thank for that.
I believe so. Model 3.
Clearly, right? Yeah, it's probably not Bolt overproduction.
Well, and everybody knows when gas goes down in price, hybrid sales go down as well.
Yes,
right.
I was at Costco the other day here in Colorado. It was $1.69 a gallon.
Wow.
Right. That's and let's be clear too. Quick, name an exciting hybrid car.
Porsche something.
Oh, you guys suck. You guys suck. I would automatically say the Avalon hybrid, but
that's exciting.
That's a grandpa car.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Okay.
ain't exciting.
Okay. Number one,
maybe in your world,
you've never driven it. You have no clue.
I drove an old one.
I have driven it, and
the brand new,
excited.
the brand new one is damn.
Not the brand.
nice.
Okay, not the brand new one.
The brand new one, total redesign, way more fun. Trust me, it is not Grandpa's car anymore.
Russ, I'm sure it makes you very popular at the nursing home.
It's not as fun as my minivan, my 7-passenger minivan.
Yeah, there you go.
Making it rain at the Cracker Barrel.
I gotta just stop. Okay. Hey, next up,
Feeling out at Cracker Barrel.
speaking of fuel, next up, Casey's got a story about some new potential fuel for Teslas.
Oh, speaking of that minivan.
Yeah, that's it.
So Tesla has made an offer to acquire Maxwell. They are a manufacturer of batteries and, more importantly, ultracapacitors, and they've got some technology lining up for solid-state batteries. And it'll be pretty interesting to see what they do with it.
And I presume patents as well.
Yeah, definitely the patents, but they're probably going to end up open sourcing that. But that does.
Yeah, they're going to give them away because that's what Tesla does.
The beauty of that is that nobody else can use it against them. Yeah. And so that's going to be all stock, probably 2 months from now, about $200 million. So they got it for a steal if it's what it looks like they're going to be doing with it.
We don't really know, but it's certainly an interesting proposal. And as you pointed out in the Tesla Life, both Elon and JB have had this kind of fascination with capacitors and ultracapacitors for a long time.
Yeah, especially the ultracapacitors.
Yeah. So, although no one's been able to get it to really work, there are certainly some scenarios where this could be super helpful in an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
We mentioned this in Tesla Life. Someone in the chat room had mentioned that the ultracapacitors might be really well utilized in the Tesla Semi for regenerative braking and their ability to absorb a lot of energy very quickly and distribute it as needed shortly after that, which is currently one of the limitations is the rate that you can charge a battery, a traditional lithium-ion battery, whereas an ultracapacitor, you've got however many tons a semi is slowing down all at once. You could pump all that regen energy into an ultracapacitor, whereas you wouldn't be able to do that same rate into a battery.
Okay.
Super charging stations.
Yeah. Right. On the semi, the battery pack is so much larger than the passenger vehicles that it might only be 1C fully loaded going down a mountain because it's got so many more cells in series and parallel. Because the battery is the size of a house.
Yeah. Well, maybe a small house, but nonetheless a house.
But the capacitors would make it so they don't need to be as careful. Maybe they could go up to 2C. Just slam that thing down from 100 to 0.
There you go. Well, speaking of batteries, Evan has another story about Tesla and batteries.
Yeah. So Tesla, this is another story in electric. Elon's long looked at these stories that seem to come out about every other day about this fantastic new battery that somebody's tested, and it's going to charge twice as fast as current batteries, and it'll hold twice as much charge, and it'll last twice as long. And it's way cheaper, and they're all better.
1 million cycles.
Exactly. Last forever. And Elon's always said, "Put one in my hand," that'll work in a car that's actually functional. And to date, that really hasn't happened. So clearly, behind the scenes, though, Tesla's been working on battery improvement, both in the gigafactories, and then they've contracted with a Halifax researcher named Jeff Dahn, Dahn, who recently filed a patent for a new battery chemistry, new battery design. And it's the general concept here is this is a lithium-ion battery, and what the general belief had been previously was that you needed multiple additives to the electrolyte systems in a lithium-ion battery to make it improve, to make it charge faster and do these things. And this patent is interesting in that they seem to have found a way to use fewer additives, and they basically are looking at it as a 2 additive electrolyte system that actually does the things that they've talked about. It's going to charge faster, though not twice as fast. It's going to have better longevity, and they should be able to produce it at a lower cost, presumably because of the reduced complexity of the additive system in there. And it's the Electrek story has lots of graphs that are really difficult to read, and the entire 42-page patent submission, which is way beyond my technical ability to completely comprehend. And we'd love somebody to look at it and tell us what it means. But the bottom line is that it's interesting that they are continuing to make improvements, and hopefully we'll see these in future models that come out. I don't know that we're going to see that in the Model Y. That may be too short term for all the testing that they need in an actual roadworthy vehicle. But I think someone mentioned the previous show that we have to think it might be an interesting option for more of a test bed vehicle like the Roadster that's coming out a little bit further out into the future.
Right. And I put figure 27 here from the article. I feel that this one graph best illustrates the advancements of their chemistry.
Clearly, yeah.
Yes.
That was the easy one.
Yeah. That was the entry level. They get progressively harder.
Yeah. Look at the capacity loss on that 2C charging.
See, somebody had to actually read the damn thing. I knew that was
not allowed
happen.
to use color in patent applications.
Apparently not.
not.
Apparently not.
Or these 1980s dot matrix printers.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, they just loop. Okay.
I got nothing. Well,
Yeah.
Wow. Let's go back. We got another Tesla
show over.
Yeah, no. We have another Tesla story from Casey.
Yes. So I was driving the minivan down. I keep saying minivan. It's a Tesla Model X.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what minivan do you have?
Driving minivan.
Minivan.
7-seater for 2 people. I don't know what we were thinking.
7-seater for 2 people. What the heck?
Oh, so we were tearing up the road as we are wont to do with the free supercharging. We were trying to see how many supercharger reviews we could get done in a weekend. We didn't hit our total of 5 like we did last time, but we did go to the mountains of Georgia. But while we were there, we happened to come across a Tesla mobile service vehicle. You're thinking, yeah, no big deal. They're everywhere, right? But this one was a Model S service vehicle. And we've seen them as well, but we haven't seen them on the East Coast. We've only ever seen them in California, Texas. And so it was pretty cool.
And since this is Casey's video, he's probably not going to sue us for using it.
No, I won't. Yeah.
We're just going to show you some of it here.
Yeah, some of it.
But yeah, do check out Casey's stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, so you can see inside they actually did the modification to this around the corner from my house. They take out the rear seats. They put in a headache rack or cage and 2 long trays. And then in these trays, they fill them with all the tools they need to actually work on your Tesla. So as long as it doesn't involve high voltage or lifting the car off the ground, the technician will do all of the work at your home or at your office without you having to.
They dispatch the appropriate parts, so they have like a bag of door handles and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so crazy.
And then they were closed, so I don't know if there was anything in the frunk, but I bet you since that's a rear-wheel drive, that there's probably a lot in that frunk as well.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. Interesting.
So there you go.
Yeah,
that's smart.
Very cool. Yeah. I wish you had been able to meet the Ranger and like get him to open the thing up.
Yeah, I showed it to my Ranger, and he's like, "Man, when do I get mine?"
Right.
Yes.
Right. Way more fun than driving around. What is it, like a Ford Transit or something?
Yeah, he's in a brand new Ford Transit Connect.
Yeah.
somebody messed up the
Ford
slightly older
Transit,
one.
Tesla. Which one would I want?
So what I'm hoping is that he gets one of the Model X's, because then he gets more space than he already has, and it's still a Tesla.
Oh, nice.
So you think they're having trouble selling the CPOs, and that's what they're
I'm wondering if these are
repurposing them for?
I wonder if these are ones that couldn't pass the test for CPO, because that one was a 2012 with the solid black roof, and it had parking sensors, but they had wrapped them in white. Like they rewrapped the car to put the Tesla service on the side, and they covered up the parking sensors. So it's
wait, 2012? 2012 didn't have.
I'm sorry, not 2012. It was a 2013.
Okay,
because the 2012s were all Founder Series and signatures.
Well, no, not all. Mine wasn't.
Not all.
Mine wasn't.
Yeah,
Evans wasn't. Wow. Well, speaking of exciting electric vehicles, Tony has a story about the quote F-150 Mini.
And here is a picture. Yes.
Oh, that is
okay.
horrifying.
Oh my.
Yes. So there's a Chinese automaker.
Is that 1979 Russell driving?
That's cold, dude. That is cold.
Oh my gosh, it is.
And I totally see it. Is the best part.
I didn't wear glasses in 1979. Okay, for the record.
Yeah, but the cheesy mustache and partial beard—that's spot on, bro.
Is that a camera bag next to it?
So a Chinese company, KN Motors, has an electric truck called the Pikmin, and
looks real safe.
They are going to bring them to the United States.
Yeah, they are
for just under $5,000, and the range is 75 miles, about 120 kilometers.
And you can't legally take it off the golf course.
It is speed capped at 45 kilometers an hour, which is 28 miles an hour. So it's not designed for the road. You can probably tell from the lack of any and all safety measures.
Yeah.
But where these
That's
are
rearview mirrors.
Yeah.
It does, actually.
I like that handbrake right there by his foot.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so where they see these filling a niche is on construction sites, carrying stuff around large warehouses,
Vehicles.
campus vehicles, all of these, low distance, but it can move, what they say, 1,100 pounds, 500 kilograms.
Not bad.
And so if you have one of these, you don't have to have an F-150 that you're starting and stopping. You don't have to buy a little truck. And the best part is, because it's electric, you can run it indoors. So, like we said, we're going to McCormick Place, which is huge.
Right.
And they're constantly moving stuff around. You could drive one of these in McCormick Place legally, because it has no exhaust, and it's so it's sure this is not a street legal vehicle, but its purpose for short range hauling things is I think it's a pretty big potential for these.
What is that, Casey? Is this a different truck?
It's a Nissan Leaf.
$5,000.
Oh God!
For $5,000, I would buy this Nissan Leaf instead. It's street legal. It's just as much of a pickup truck. You can run it indoors. It was a project done by Nissan.
That sure is something.
I actually really like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's horrible.
It's got tailgate and everything.
Yeah,
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, I can't wait until thousands and thousands of these little mini trucks are everywhere, because undoubtedly, what has Evan got now?
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I use.
There it is, right there.
Yeah.
Is that yours, Evan?
That's mine. That's
I was going to say that's your lake
at my lake
That's
house.
your
Yeah.
EV.
That's my
Batteries
EV.
in you.
Oh no!
I've got more seating capacity than the pickup.
You do. I don't. You know what? How can you make fun of me and you own a golf cart? You own a golf cart.
No, it's electric people transport.
No, it
Yes.
is a golf cart.
It has never carried golf clubs, so
Okay, well that.
But that would be legal in McCormick Place as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
As long as there's no exhaust that.
Actually, they could use those trucks at airports to cart
Yeah.
people to the gate and throw their bags in the back. And,
The golf cart limos with like 12 rows.
yeah.
Nice.
Almost a tram.
Yeah, it is a tram, right? It's just missing a goofy thing on the front, and
Yeah.
you know, like this way to section 4-2, section 4-2.
And on the left, we see Disney's idea for the world of tomorrow.
Right. Walt's frozen head is in the building on the right. Okay. I'm actually going to do a story this week.
Woo!
Right.
Which isn't a big deal because I usually do, but I'm only doing one. And so Angie Schmidt, who, if you are interested in transportation issues, urban mobility issues, Angie Schmidt is a wonderful writer. She writes, and I believe she's the editor at Streets Blog USA, which is another really great site. They do a lot of just good, solid reporting on stuff. Just a couple of days ago, Angie published a story that sort of crystallized for me a lot of things that we've talked about on this show with regard to ride-sharing companies. The headline of which, again, is, quote, all the bad things about Uber and Lyft in one simple list. And she does a wonderful job of summarizing why Uber and Lyft aren't so great. And I'm just going to touch on this, then we can chat about it. And then we'll have some fun, maybe. Hopefully I won't bring everybody down too much. One of the most interesting things, which leads off this article, this was a report in the Daily Bruin. This is the news organization for UCLA in Los Angeles. They did a study and found that there are 11,000 app-based trips every week that begin and end within the boundaries of the campus.
What?
Now, UCLA is big, but 11,000 trips that begin and end in the campus itself.
Like somebody's going from one side to the other of the campus?
Yeah. And they're calling Uber, Lyft, and Via. Now, why is this bad, right? Why? I mean, well,
because the students are lazy slobs. Like, you can't blame Uber, Lyft, and Via for that.
Well, they are so cheap that they even consider it.
Well, it's cheap, and these students have the parents' credit card on their Uber account, and they use it like candy. I mean, I have Uber drivers as customers, and they tell me these stories that the kids will literally take an Uber 2 blocks to go to Taco Bell or to the liquor store, and then take another one back to their, wherever they're staying. Like 2 or 3 blocks, they can't walk. So
without banging on the kids, which is not one of my favorite things to do, because let's be clear, my generation, every bit as lazy and indolent as anyone that you can describe as a millennial. So let's just not, bang on them too hard. But here it is. They're used to this technology. They're comfortable with it. And what it's done is, again, it's replacing stuff on bikes, people walking, mass transit. That's what it's doing. It's easy to get anywhere you want.
Yeah.
Yes, Evan. I'm sorry.
But it's not the technology's fault that it's being abused.
I understand.
People are abusing the technology.
I understand that.
So it's not.
But we're going to get to that.
Lyft and Via's fault.
We're going to get to. You want me to make my point right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason it's their fault is this isn't a real system that charges people what the ride really costs. There are all kinds of externalities that get sucked up by the ride sharing companies, and that get sucked up by drivers who don't get paid very damn much to do what they do.
Right.
Okay, these companies bleed money, but they're all about that Amazon model of owning the market, and then they can jack up their price. But the problem is nobody's really owned the market yet, so they're still fighting it out. They're bleeding venture capital like crazy. So if this was a taxi trip and they actually cost them $7 to get across campus, they probably wouldn't do it. But it's an Uber, and again, mom's credit card, whatever. But it costs them $2.50 or $3, so they don't care.
Yep.
Now, is that the technology's fault. I'm not usually one to blame the technology, but in this case, again, because these companies don't actually charge what it costs, this is like subsidized gas.
So, well, I can see that you'd say the technology is sort of facilitating the laziness of the students and the abuse of the way it should be used. I think you can't lose sight of the fact that people are choosing Uber and Lyft not solely because it's less expensive than a taxi, which it usually is, but because it is a better service.
Yes.
It's more comfortable. It's
yes.
the drivers are more polite and respectful. There's a feedback system that helps make sure that takes place. And taxis sucked. And I don't know if they're getting, honestly, I don't know if they're getting better. I suspect they are because
not many left, but
yeah. But the ones that are probably desperate to stay afloat. So, there's, can there be abuse of anything? Sure. I mean, we use the internet for porn. So, the internet's bad, right? I mean, you can't look at it that way. You've got to, it's not the technology.
I don't know. I think I'm blaming the business model.
I've got a tangent for them. So today there was an article about Lyft doing EV rides. Like you can actually hail a green ride. It's probably mostly going to be Priuses, but it's going to have a bias towards an EV if there are any nearby, and if not, you get a Prius. But at least you're not going to get a Suburban.
Uber and Lyft drivers are already driving hybrids because if you drive a normal car, you're not going to make any money.
Right.
It's cheaper. There's a lot of them. I see them here. Let me continue making my case, and then you guys can just join me at the end. One of the other things that Angie points out, Uber and Lyft are providing 90,000 rides a day in Seattle. That's more than the Seattle light rail system carries currently. Again, is it easier to call one of these things from your phone than it is to stand in line and wait for the train? Right? The answer is undoubtedly yes. It's not necessarily the fault of that, but we have to figure out, some way to work with this without these things having unintended consequences like killing mass transit, which is a really good thing for us in general. Anyway, Uber and Lyft drivers spend more than, they say anywhere between 30 to 60%. These are estimates because Uber and Lyft doesn't give us a lot of data. And both companies actively encourage their drivers not to sit and wait, but to circle and drive around to get rides. So they say anytime there's someone working, 30 to 60% of their miles, deadheading. They're not carrying anybody. They're not making money. They're just driving.
Well, why do they encourage them to do that?
Because then they're available and they're more available.
Yeah, because then you are 2 seconds away from somebody, but 5 minutes from somebody else.
Right.
And so they'll pair you faster. But if you're just sitting, they don't know if you're out of the car. They don't know if you're chit-chatting with other Uber drivers. And so they are going to give you last if you're directly in the middle of that same scenario. If you're right in the middle, then that guy who's sharking it is going to get to go 5 minutes rather than you. And if it's the 20-second ride, he's going to be there in a second.
Right.
But the algorithms will get better, and they'll try to predict where the demand is and tell people go to this corner. You'll get a fare quicker.
They nudge you a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe, but why? What does Uber lose?
They lose nothing. That's why they want you sharking it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that's it. In other words, the deadheading is a cost that the drivers absorb.
Right.
Yeah, they got wear and tear. They got fuel. And if it's electric, then boom, that's something they can't do later in the evening because now they got to stop at the DC fast charger if their town even has one. Otherwise, they're stuck on level 2.
So, according to one study, 70% of Uber and Lyft trips take place in 9 cities.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
These are cities: Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. Most of those cities actually have fairly extensive mass transit systems and fairly reasonable, again, as much as it sucks, taxi service. So in other words, what they're doing is they're edging out less polluting, less road crowding things and filling those urban areas with more cars. If this
but all those cities have difficult parking. So a lot of people say, I don't want to own a car because parking's a hassle. I'm just going to Uber everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There are also targets for the Musk tunnels, the Hyperloop, and the Tesla network. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, there may be something to it.
Let's not go there. So again, without being too redundant, the unintended side effect of this is that this brings down, it depresses the need for mass transit, which means politicians who already don't usually support mass transit support it less because they can point to Uber and Lyft who provide this service, and the city doesn't have to pay for anything. And if there's more traffic on the road, whatever, Elon's going to build a tunnel for private cars, right? And all the Bond supervillains will be able to drive in it at 190 miles an hour.
$1 million.
Yeah, $1 million. They increase traffic fatalities.
Yeah.
More cars on the road, driving more. Yeah, guess what? University of Chicago study estimated that Uber and Lyft increased traffic fatalities by 1,100 people. 1,100 people. Now, can I link every one of those people to a specific Uber and Lyft driver? I can't. And I don't know that the University of Chicago can. But it makes sense. If you have all these cars cruising around, driving, people are going to get run over. Finally,
although Uber and Lyft do have these shared rides where
the pool and the line.
Yeah, 2 to 4 people in the car and try to optimize the route, which you could argue takes cars off the road.
If the drivers and the riders do it, but most on both sides actually actively fight it because it's cheap rides and the riders don't get along with each other sometimes. And
yeah. That's it. So tear me up. Come on, Evan. You are madly reaching something.
I'm reading the traffic fatalities.
Okay. The study. Chicago.
Yeah.
Tony,
let me tell you what pisses me off the most about Lyft. We are encouraged for work to use Lyft. I usually will drive myself to the airport and then take the train. The tram, I guess, into the airport. It's really easy and convenient and it's free. I decided that I decided to use Lyft. I just wanted to give it a shot. And I live 50 some miles north of O'Hare. So all of these Lyft and Uber were coming in and picking up people. I put in my thing that said I need a ride. This is where I'm going. It took almost 10 minutes before anyone picked up my ride. And I'm standing there. And then my phone rings. And it was someone. And they said, "Hi, I'm your Lyft driver. Where are we going?" And I told them where I was going. And they said, "Where is that exactly?" And first of all, I was like, "Okay, you don't know where the city is. It's not it's not an unfamiliar town north of Chicago."
No.
And then once he understood where it was and how far away it was,
he canceled the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Hung up the phone, canceled the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're not supposed to do that.
I had no idea who this person was. I couldn't rate them because I had no more tie to them because they canceled the ride. There was no way for me to get back.
Yeah.
That happened to me 3 times in one night before one person actually picked me up. And then once I was in the car, said, "Okay, where are we going?"
Yeah.
And he turned out to be a really great guy. We had a great conversation the entire time there, and I tipped him very well and blah, 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 blah. But I can tell you that a local news, one of WGN News in Chicago recently did a thing on ride sharing at O'Hare. It did not get good reviews. It's really, really just a total cluster at O'Hare to try to get a ride share out of O'Hare.
Yeah, and
but then from the driver's point of view, it might be their last trip of the night,
right?
And they live near O'Hare, and they don't want to drive an hour out and an hour back when they were expecting to be home in 20 minutes.
Right, or they've been waiting in line for an hour or 2 hours for their turn.
So that's one more.
And now they go where they don't want to go. Yeah.
Well, and that's one more thing for the article.
Yeah.
Right. The one more thing about why Uber and Lyft suck is that we talk about all the greatness that there is for the people hailing the rides, when at the end of the day, if that person doesn't want to go there, they'll just drop you and you're on your own. Figure it out.
Yeah, unless you can find somebody who's willing to do it.
Or because the driver, I was in Seattle once, and I called an Uber, and they couldn't find the street because they're retarded or something. And they canceled the ride, and then I got charged $5 as a no-show. And it's like, no, I was where I said I was. You couldn't find me. It's not my problem. So I did dispute it. They did give me my $5 back, but I was really annoyed.
Right. Yeah. And that left you standing.
Yeah. So I had to order another car, and
pay the fee and wait for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not expecting. I'm not expecting to shut down Uber and Lyft tonight. I really don't like Uber. I don't think they're, and I've said why on the show before. I've used Lyft. It's okay. And I think I'm sorry?
I said I'm new.
Oh, there you go.
No, I mean, you said it on the show. I don't know.
Yeah. No. And it's... I just because it's new doesn't mean it works right. Doesn't mean it works the way it should. Yeah. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have unintended consequences that won't hurt us in the long run. That's all. Is it better than taxis? Oh, hell yes. Absolutely. We needed something like this. But what we would ideally need is something that actually doesn't hide costs so that companies can claim market share.
Yeah.
That actually charges what it costs, that actually pays its employees a decent wage, and that doesn't distract us from a super important mission, which is in dense urban areas that we concentrate on mass transit, which is so much better for all of us for a lot of reasons, involving not having cars cruising around the block all night. Yes, Paul.
Well, and like, I don't know, it's at 57 cents right now. The IRS takes as an average operating cost per mile of a car.
Right.
And that is covering your fuel, your maintenance, your insurance, blah, 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 blah. Whereas in their 36 cents, they get a small part of that when they have a paying customer in the car. But like you said, all these deadhead trips, they're burning up 56 cents a mile of operating costs. And yes, they can write it off, but they do the math. They're not making money.
Right, they're losing money, and like you said, it's not good for the passengers. It's not good for the drivers. The only people making money are Uber.
Pocket. It's coming out of the independent driver's pocket.
Yeah. And to Paul's point, yes, that 50 miles that I drive, I get to expense that because I'm traveling for business, as well as the parking at the O'Hare parking spot. So considering I'm getting 55 cents and I'm driving my Prime and I'm burning less than a gallon of gas. So I'm making a little money by just inconveniencing myself a little bit.
But is it inconvenient when you get back? There's a ride waiting for you.
Sometimes,
but especially if you get back in a weird like 1 o'clock in the morning where there's no Uber drivers.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Cause it's not inconvenient because I know there's a car right there because I'm the one that left.
Take you home.
That'll take me out. Yeah. I mean, the only thing is, after sometimes a flight, it's a rough day and, now I have to get in my car and I have to drive for an hour, but at least I'm in my car and I know I'm on the way home.
But you don't have to worry about an unhinged stranger. They don't have to worry about you. Like, who is this guy? Oh my goodness, a ghost. He's going to kill me. What?
Yes, I'm a ghost.
Yeah, that lighting follows Tony wherever he goes.
Yes.
So what are the solutions, though? Are we going to ask for the government to step in and fix
think
things like they always do?
Big government is always the solution.
Right. I mean, I think this is
You just get the investors to remove some of the subsidy, make them do it responsibly, give them a timeline to, hey, we don't want you to blow our money on just giving away half a ride. So by the end of next year, you need to do this. You need to do it at a profitable rate. Oh, by the way, we're investing in Lyft. We're going to make them do the same thing. Figure it out.
But if all those $4 rides become $8 or $12 rides, then people are going to stop using it. So
yeah, well, too bad.
Yeah, it's still cheaper than taxi at $8.
That's market pressure. That's consumerism, capitalism, whatever. Yeah.
When they started, they were a black car service, so it was like you're riding around in a Prius for $20 a trip for a short trip. Oh well, they can go back to it.
I don't know, Evan. Do you think there's a problem that needs to be solved?
Well, I tried reading that study, and there's a lot of assumptions in there, so it's
sure
very. And there's definitely no hard numbers to go on, but it's worth studying further. Yeah. Look, I don't think the things that you have mentioned are irrelevant by any means. I mean, I think I looked at the stats on the mass transit utilization, which is clearly trending down, and that's worrisome. So yeah, I think there's potentially a problem. I'm just not sure what the solution is, right? Things change over time, and we have to adapt and improvise, and a lot of times things have to get worse before they get better, and we find kind of a new balance to the whole process. Right now, I use Uber. I like Uber. I've had great experiences across the board, all over the country and outside of this country, using Uber. And
especially comparing to old-fashioned taxi drivers.
100%. If I have my way, I'll never use an old-fashioned taxi again. They're paying the. No, last time I did use one, my last trip to Las Vegas, simply because they were a little more. They've got a great system at the Las Vegas airport, and so they were pretty easy to jump into to go to my hotel from the airport. But coming back, used Uber because that was faster and easier.
Yeah, I've hosted a couple of Uber rides in my Tesla, the old one mostly, and the people love it. I mean, I do Premier only, and they get in, they're like, "Whoa, this is way better than a GMC Acadia." Yes, it is. But the tangential topic to that is somebody suggested that when the self-driving cars are finally a thing, that they are also going to have this same situation with the driving in circles, because they're not going to want to pay to park, so they'll drive in circles in the city. Hopefully they'll crash less.
If I may, Casey, or again, and Evan, I can't cite the study, but I just was reading a summary of it. They were talking about if autonomous vehicles actually are a reality at some point, in a city like San Francisco, where ride sharing is super popular, and parking is crazy expensive. These cars will do nothing but cruise around all day
that's
long.
the one I was talking about. Yeah.
All day long. And they were saying that the average speed on a San Francisco street when this is fully implemented would be like 2 miles an hour. Now that's the bad, right? Like that's the bad thing that you want to avoid before it happens.
Yeah,
but
because they won't want to go faster and waste the fuel.
Well,
but they want to park and pay the $3.
Right. Exactly. They're not going to park. They
$20.
They want to be moving. I mean, this isn't, we can see the problems coming with this. The question is, can we do something about it?
Yeah, we need to
load them up in a
find some solutions.
Like a magazine,
or create a loop above the city that.
Oh my God!
Zigzags around. I don't know.
Hyperloop.
Like that. So nobody
sky hyperloop.
Like the L in Chicago, except for autonomous cars to loop around it.
Wait, did you just suggest we create elevated rail? That's so 19th century of you.
For elevated rail for
tunnel.
Ride sharing.
If the elevated
thought of before.
If the elevated rail could exit and take you directly to the door of the place you wanted to go, that would be great. And so if you have an Uber type vehicle that can do that and then go back up onto the L when it wants to drive around the city, that would be efficient.
Okay, so we've already established that these programs lose money pretty much with every ride they give.
Yeah.
So the solution is we all need to ride more and then bleed them out of their money so they all go bankrupt and the problem solves itself.
I don't want them to go away. I just want them to do.
The surly taxi drivers come back.
Yeah, I mean. And look, there's a reason why we badge taxis, to control the number of cars that were prowling the streets.
Right.
Okay, that's a reason why cities do things like that. Not because otherwise the taxi company would win who had the most taxis. And that's what Uber and Lyft are. We have to take the good things from these companies, from ride sharing, and get rid of the bad stuff.
Right, and it was also mentioned. It was also mentioned in the article that a lot of the Lyft and Uber drivers don't have to take the same safety training that the taxi drivers have to. I mean, the taxi drivers have to earn their badge.
Right, because they're all
they need
safe drivers.
Many places a commercial driver's license too.
I don't disagree with you, but that's a hard case to make. I've been in a lot of shitty taxis.
Well, right, but at least it's some obstacle that someone has to overcome.
Yeah.
It is. We are way over on time. So let's go through some shout outs and go home, kids. Cause I love that you guys were that engaged on this. I thought it would just be me ranting for 5 minutes and we'd end the show early. So thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Casey.
What's my YouTube channel today? It's YouTube. It's you spell out my name. It's Casey Green, or you can do the link. It's Midlands Hybrid, and got some nice stuff coming out this week for you guys.
Absolutely.
All right.
And do check out Casey's channel. He's got a lot of cool stuff. It's fun videos. And again, just to watch him wave the money, the drag racing money, that was well worth it.
Yes, I got to do it again.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I am doing it again. We have a professional driver training course. It's not a race, but you still get to see, 8,000 pounds of vehicle just flying around a track.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Casey Green on YouTube and now on What Drives Us. Thank you. Dr. Fusco.
I have a YouTube, but it's not that good.
I have a YouTube, but it's not that good.
Yeah.
Dude, you are so your
Hang on, that's the
generation.
show title. I have a YouTube. It's not that good.
That might even beat Mark's previous. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Good luck with the bowling thing, okay? By the way.
Yeah, thanks.
I have to write that down. Paul, do you want to do your shout-outs?
Nope, I'm going to pass this week in the because we're out of time.
But he'll fix your hybrid.
And he has to go because he's been working all day. Tony.
Hey, Paul, good luck with the breathalyzer.
That's cold.
What was that? You broke up on me.
He said good luck with the breathalyzer.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to everyone in the chat room. Especially a shout out to Mark Coughlin in the chat room because he could actually punch me if I don't give him a shout out.
That means you're in the chat room too.
Yeah. So I gotta do this again. There we go. Yeah.
What's Ghost Tony doing?
I'm ghosting. I'm ghosting you.
Okay.
Hey, so are you guys live broadcasting tomorrow, and you know what time or anything, so we can?
No, because I tried doing the live Facebook thing, whatever, last year. It did not go well.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to record, and then I'll take it home. I'll edit it, and it'll be out like this weekend, hopefully.
All right.
Yeah.
Thought maybe the Wi-Fi would be better or something.
Okay.
Well,
is that it, Tony?
Oh yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. As always, thank Michael Mannering for his theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. Visit us at What Drives Us all over the place. Facebook.com/What Drives Us. We're on Twitter at What Drives Us. YouTube.com/What Drives Us. Hit the subscribe button. We need your support, please, and it costs you nothing. And you'll be notified whenever we produce some new stuff. Tony's going to be at the Chicago Auto Show with Mark. We'll have some new videos for that. I'm still working on the Avalon Hybrid review, the Lexus LC500 review.
Woo!
And something else too. But the Lexus LC500 will be our first review in 4K. So you high def folks, throwing you a bone there. I want to thank everybody on the panel. Paul, Evan, Casey, and Tony, and Mark Coughlin. Oh God, you had to put that up, didn't you, Evan? There it is. There's Missouri's answer to Adam Levine right there. Thank you. Evan, did you just shave off the beard or differently? What am I missing there, buddy?
Let me find this other good one.
Yeah. Oh, they're all good, Evan.
They're all good.
There we go.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Oh, that was just brutal. Oh
Wow.
God. Yeah. Yeah. I got nothing else on that. That is some serious manscaping.
For anybody that stayed on as we went over time, this is your reward.
Yeah. So thanks to everybody in the chat room, as always. Thanks to all of you who watch us every day. Download us next week and find out what drives us. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you and good night. We'll see you next week.